Sometimes you realize too late when you've made a mistake. And that was me last week. Weekend. We were up at the cabin and coming back down. This was the weekend of 4th of July, but there was an article in the Coloradoan that kind of prompted me to remember this. And we were coming back down 287, and this is by Owl Canyon Road. And this was essentially probably 20 minutes north of Fort Collins. This is before the forks at kind of where it forks to either keep going north to Wyoming or west to Red Feather. And there's some significant road construction. And I was coming down the hill myself because I had to get going, start work early. And so I was coming down probably around, not even that early, like 9:30. And I had to stop there for about 10 minutes to wait my turn because there was only one lane on 287. And then my wife texted me around like noon, and her mom had to get on a plane that day. And she said, "Did you get stuck in traffic at on 287?" And I said, "Well, yeah, for 10 minutes." She goes, "We've been here for like an hour. I would have left much earlier had I known that the traffic was going to be that bad." So big whoops on my part, but ultimately they got there. Mother-in-law got safe on the plane, but there is significant delays on 287 by Owl Canyon Road. It's a single lane there, and I believe that's going to be, golly, when is it going till? I'm not sure how long it's going to be going, but until it's done, it's a significant delay. So if you're making trips north or south up to Wyoming, Laramie, plan on that delay. In fact, it made me just think about a buddy of mine who builds houses in Laramie but lives in Fort Collins. And I'm like, oh, God, if he has to traverse that, maybe he's going up, I don't even know. It's just probably just as fast going up I-25 and then heading west. But regardless, this is live in Fort Collins. We come to you every week, Monday at noon. And next week, Izzy is going to be taking the center stage because I'm going on vacation. We're going to go to the Dominican Republic, my first time there. Family, kids are going to be going. They're going to be spending a week on the beach, so we're super excited. But we will have Izzy come in and step in for our live in Fort Collins, Mondays at noon. One quick thing, one ask, one request. Now, if you guys are watching this live, feel free to comment as we go. But one request is we were nominated for the best real estate company in Fort Collins through the Coloradoans. So you can go on there. In our newsletter that we send out every Tuesday, I will provide a link to do that voting, but it would be huge, and we'd really appreciate it if you'd go on there, spend a couple minutes, Coloradoan top real estate company, vote. There'll be a couple of links. We're under the services for businesses, so we would really appreciate that. Thanks for everybody who supported Sukup Real Estate Services over the years. Founded in 2016, so we are going on over 9 years in business. Very grateful for everyone's support and some recognition by the Coloradoan. But we are going to be talking to you guys about things that are happening in Fort Collins, things that happened, City Council work session review, which there were 4 things that they really discussed. The night skies in Fort Collins, which I thought was really interesting. I'm just like, there's so many things that make Fort Collins great, but an intentionality behind kind of our light pollution and what we're doing about it and how we're trying to mitigate it. From there was a work session to discuss the civic assembly for the Hugh Stadium. Then this next week, the city council is going to be going over the citizen petition for the Hugh Stadium. So this November, we are going to be voting, it seems, on how the land at Hugh Stadium, the 164 acres, is going to be used. But that was discussed. And then from there, land use code changes for the commercial corridor, and then our community capital improvement project, quarter-cent sales tax, the project kind of what projects are going to be funded from this, so that you know when you're voting on sales tax in Fort Collins, where those dollars are being spent. I will say this. I love Loveland. Okay, we've got 3 agents that work in Loveland, Izzy, Connor, Zach, and now our TC lives in Loveland as well. So 4 of our people at Sukup Real Estate Services live in Loveland. So I want to give some support and love to Loveland. We actually held our summer client event in at Lake Loveland this last Saturday. Had it catered, had some tacos, a couple food trucks there, and it was a great time and just a cool area. So definitely want to give Loveland its fair share of love. But I will say that I think they're feeling some of the ramifications of their voting by way of less sales tax because, well, one thing this year, they didn't have fireworks. Lake Loveland, the swimming beach, I don't know if it's coordinated with the lack of sales tax or not, but the swimming beach at Lake Loveland's been shut down, and public bathrooms Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are closed at public parks. So if you're spending time in Loveland at any of their parks, public facilities, there is no bathrooms available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And we were freaking out because we thought that maybe it was all the time, but they are open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's something to be said. So when you're making these votes for the half-cent sales tax that we just passed 2 years ago for parks and recreation, climate, and transportation. And then we have this community capital improvement tax. Our city sales tax is about 8.05%. But I will say, when you drive through Fort Collins, I feel like we are very intentional about where our dollars are going to go. That being said, I do have some kind of hot takes on a few of the places that they want, where they want money to go. But we will jump right in on things that have happened this last week. Let's see here. Judge rules to keep the Thornton pipeline alive. I thought it was interesting that Thornton has access to water rights in general are crazy, as I've mentioned many times before. But the city of Thornton, which is about an hour south of us, has Poudre River water rights. And, well, they have legal standing to deliver that water to them. And there is a how many mile pipeline? I mean, if it's 85% and they've got 10 miles left, we're roughly probably about 120-mile pipeline would be my guess. Check my math if you're watching live and let me know. But there's a 10-mile stretch in Larimer County that the judge upheld, saying that Thornton can build this to bring their water to them down in Thornton. Now, there are advocate groups, Save the Poudre, that may appeal this judge's ruling to delay it a little bit longer. But I will say it looks like that is going through. And the pipeline direction is really interesting as far as where it's going and how it gets water from, point A to point B type deal. And I know a little bit about it just because family had a property that was going to be impacted by it. And ultimately what they're going to do is they're going to reimburse these homeowners for the digging up, the trenching, and then having an underground pipeline. But looks like that is probably going to be going through. They have access to up to 14,000 acre feet per year. Do you know what an acre? I do know what an acre foot of water is. An acre foot of water, if you were ever wondering, because that's kind of how water is measured. It is the amount of water that could cover an acre 1 foot deep. So basically a football field, and then be able to saturate that ground 1 foot deep. The more you know. A great book is Colorado Water for the Non-Attorney. I did read that. Great information. Really interesting how water has gotten to where it's gotten, the reasoning behind it. So if you're interested, it is a relatively quick book too. One thing that's interesting is my entire life growing up here, always knew a 970 area code meant Fort Collins, Northern Colorado. And while, anymore, I mean, my wife still has a California area code and no real desire to change it. Long distance calls don't really exist anymore. But I have recommended to some of my agents, hey, maybe get yourself a local area code so that when you're calling somebody, you're calling from local. Like you might be from Montana or maybe from Texas, but get yourself a local area code. So therefore, when you're calling, you're from Northern Colorado. But an area code 748 will be starting July 7th. We're beginning to assign numbers. I'm definitely not going to get that area code. I'm just a 970 kind of guy. I think there's a lot of people. There's 970 logos. I mean, people, same with zip codes, area codes, all that kind of stuff. People are proud of their area codes. So 748, just not doing it for me. Speaking about night skies, we're going to talk here shortly, but Colorado came in number 2 for best stargazers. So I think that's really pretty cool. And I'm going to get into Fort Collins about how and what we're doing with our light pollution and kind of the intentionality behind that here shortly. Let's see here. Donald Trump made more changes to national parks, how it affects Colorado, potentially an executive order for non-U.S. individuals to pay a premium to get into our national parks. I just thought that some numbers were really interesting. In 2023, the Park Services says there were 7.3 million park visitors, and they spent an estimated $796 million in local gateway regions while visiting national parks in Colorado. Actually, we just had a friend who did a Colorado trip. I mean, they went and visited all the national parks. I mean, you can do it in a week. It looked like they had an absolute amazing time and experienced a lot of different geographies and locations. But I'm sure they spent a lot of money in that last week. Here's some of the other information is 11,100 jobs, $472 million in labor income, $769 million in value added, and 1.3. So that equates to $1.3 billion in economic output. Just really important for Colorado, our national forests, state all that, state parks, all that kind of stuff. YIMBY hosted a mayor forum where there was 5 mayor candidates that came in and talked about housing in Fort Collins and what they want to do. Here were some of the key takeaways. Let's see here. Here is some of the housing shortage causes: construction defects laws, lack of zoning flexibility. They wanted to reform the development review processes, encouraging smaller lot sizes and reducing regulatory barriers. Canonico and Appeal emphasized enabling more diverse housing options. Let's see here. Our goal is to have 10% deed restricted affordable housing by 2040. We're definitely not anywhere close to that. Funding's a primary issue. ADUs are going to be a big impact in Colorado, let alone Fort Collins. And that was kind of it. It was an hour-long YouTube video that's on the YIMBY YouTube channel. If you want to go watch that, that would be great. Just to see, who the 5 mayor candidates are. Horse and Dragon, who's been on our podcast, always do a great job supporting community events. They're an open door, welcoming people into their building for whatever types of nonprofits or profits, organizations and gatherings. So thank you, Horse and Dragon. And then the last thing before we jump into the city council work session is be safe out there. Larimer County Sheriff's Office on just last Wednesday had 3 rescues in one day, 2 p.m., 3:30 p.m. At Crozier. I did a video on this, so this is embarrassing, but I don't even know how to pronounce this. Happening at Crozier Mountain, I would have to imagine, Crosier Mountain, Gray Rock, and Coral Creek. The video that I did was how to pronounce things in Fort Collins. Never heard of Crozier Mountain. So, but there was a rescue support. There was rescue there, Gray Rock, and Coral Creek. All that to be said, it doesn't take long, and it is important. My dad goes out hiking all the time, and I get frustrated with him because he doesn't really tell us where he's going or has any types of satellite GPS. And I think there's technologies and tools out there that you can minimize a lot of this risk of getting lost or hurt and not being able to get found. So make sure, take some precautionary steps, have the right tools in your vehicle, make sure that you're adequately prepared physically and mentally about what challenge you're about to take on. Maybe don't bite off more than you can chew, so to speak. And one of the best, I think, pieces of advice that I would recommend is go with somebody who's been before. Yes, it's fun to go off and adventure by yourself and maybe with somebody who hasn't been, but maybe just as not safe, 1, but 2, you might also miss some things that if you go with somebody who's been there, done that, could help show you. So just kind of a PSA of make sure to be safe. Don't want to have to put Larimer County Sheriff's Department off their rescue too keeping them too busy. All right. Let's jump into our city council work session recaps. I'm going to share my screen. So just one second. Here we go. I'm going to do. All right, that works. All right. So this is just kind of this has been a 10-year long initiative of City of Fort Collins. And this is what they call their triple bottom line, saying that, if we're good on not just focusing on economic, but focusing on social and environmental, it's just going to make a better place to live. Lots of different departments are focused in on this, so it actually falls under the city manager, but a lot of different departments are a part of this kind of night sky initiative. This was, I just thought this very bad, better, best. So just trying to figure out how can we not pollute the skies as much. Here is our lighting code. We have a lighting code that was implemented in 2017. And so if you are, let's say you're considering moving to Fort Collins, Northern Colorado, or this one's specific to Fort Collins, but the yellow is going to be our brightest and most intense lighting, followed by blue and then green. So our green is going to have the least amount of light pollution in comparison to our other zones and what can be built there. Now, whenever we implement a new code change, it's never retroactive. So it's not like these businesses or properties have to change what they've already built. It's moving forward. But just, site lighting codes, dimming the lights by 50% 2 hours after normal business hours. And then outdoor lighting must be turned off 30 minutes after sunrise. So just a focus towards light pollution and energy efficiency as well. With our air quality monitors, they're also monitoring our skies and our sky pollution. If you're looking for the darkest place in Fort Collins to go, Soapstone Prairie is going to be that area. If you're looking for one of the brightest, you can't see it, but that says Hilton. Hilton Hotel is going to be one of our brightest areas. And this is kind of where other areas are going to kind of fall in that. So again, here's kind of our brightness, our code, all that good stuff. But Soapstone Prairie is going to be our darkest place. So if you're going to go sky gazing, that's where you should go. Fossil Reservoir Natural Area is a great area to go as well, but still brighter than Soapstone. All right. That's really some different examples before and after. I'll tell you what, I don't know about you. I guess that hopefully is the before and that's the after, but maybe not. Lincoln Center and also the Natural Resources Center, they have done some lighting retrofits, trying to make it less impactful for light pollution. And what I was saying earlier is these are kind of the things that combine that when you look at things like our undergrounded utilities and you don't see power lines going through, our light pollution at night. There is just such an intentionality behind our day-to-day lives that people don't necessarily see that are being discussed on a day-to-day basis within our kind of city governors. That being said, also with our light plan, our night skies plan, we weren't going to do a huge change on all of our city lights. We're going to change as needed. As they go out, we replace them with newer technology, better lighting. And so it's kind of an as we go. As they fail, we will replace those. This is, I think that is looking to Fort Collins, if I remember right. And you can kind of see the light halo is what they were calling it. And then this is Fort Collins or Horsetooth Rock during winter. So apparently there's a pretty decent reflection off of the snow with all of the brightness. Anyways, interesting stuff. All right, now we will scoot down to the Civic Assembly, because this is probably one of the most important things that City of Fort Collins is voting on currently. I should say it went through the Civic Assembly, where about 19, it sounds like, individuals discussed, had people come in and talk to them about what they should have on this 164-acre site. And ultimately at 89%, there was a multi-use decision. And as you can see, we're basically here at the end of this huge roadmap. All right, so we passed the ballot measure, city acquired the land from CSU, and then we've sped into getting the civic assembly, the recommendations, and now our work plan and final kind of output. So the supermajority property should be utilized for multiple uses. That's really the biggest thing. They want to have indigenous consultation. Natural habitat should be restored as possible because that's actually really expensive. Outdoor recreation, community gathering spaces, minimize light pollution. There you go. Include trail connections. And then the city will consult with experts and planners. Let's skip down. All right, so here's some parameters that were discussed. They want a bike park in there that does not exceed 35 acres. That's not, and that doesn't include parking, bathrooms, or other facilities. That means just the bike park can't exceed 35 acres. That doesn't mean that it will get up to 35 acres. It's just putting some parameters on that. There were some conversations around that saying, hey, that would be bigger than Boulder's because Boulder's 40 acres actually includes their parking and structures. So it could actually be bigger than Boulder's if it was built out all the way to 35 acres. The one thing that they wanted to change on this, a lot of the majority of the council members that I could hear, they wanted to make sure that this was on there, that a bike park will be built not to exceed 35 acres versus a bike park may be built. So just kind of some semantics, but important. 20 acres, not for environmental education. And they wanted to increase that up to 30 acres. That was one change that they were hoping for. Here is the basically resolution. The process that it looks like it's going to happen is the city of Fort Collins is going to pass this resolution and then be put on the ballot because there is a citizens initiative that wants to keep the 164 acres as total natural area. And so it will probably be on the ballot as options with how will Hugh Stadium be used with multiple uses, all natural area. And we, as the city of Fort Collins, who voted on this in 2021, will get to vote on now its actual use. So this is coming down the pipeline this November. Next, we looked at our land use code updates for the commercial corridors and centers. Now, this is really specific towards commercial corridors and centers, the transit overlay district, then the Harmony corridors and employment centers, and also its form and structure, as well as change of use for small business owners, really. So let's get down into here. Come on. There we go. Okay. So they're hoping to get this really solidified, cleared up, and then voted on in September to have phase. This is our phase 2 of our land use code updates, but our first and second reading in September. So they've got a lot to kind of clear up here. But all that being said, here is what they're trying to align the commercial code with. It advances 15-minute cities, policy plans, balancing desired outcomes, adding clarity to the city's development review process. I think that's huge. I think developers' biggest frustration in the city of Fort Collins development review process is there's 9 different departments all not talking together, and they could have 9 different things to change, have to come back, and it can add a lot of frustration to developers. Really, they're going to be focusing on the red and purple and light purple areas. That's going to be what this mostly focuses on. So they've been working on this for the last year after we passed our land use code for the residential side of things. So once that was done, they really started working on the commercial side of things. And they're hoping for, this is the work session, they're hoping for basically a September time period of voting this in. Some guiding principles. This is the Transit Oriented Development Overlay, the TOD, and they're trying to figure out what they want in this specific area. And I will tell you there was options. Here's increase it from 4 stories to 5 stories, limit gas stations, also remove parking requirements and parking minimums, removing parking minimums. Those were kind of the biggest changes that they're wanting to do. Oh, and they also don't want any self-storage. I don't know where that is. That'll get down here in a second. That was probably the biggest conversation. Where did the options go? Sorry, forgive me real quick. Maybe there was, oh. They didn't have options, I'm sorry. They did in the actual presentation, but they did not here. Well, let's see here. The biggest thing is they did not want to have gas stations. They don't want to have self-storage there. They want to minimize how many auto dealerships are going to be built and pop up along South College Avenue. They want to focus on, hey, how can we push housing in this transit overlay district? Because that's kind of this desire in the TOD is to have the bus rapid transit system and to be able to have multi-use buildings along that area. But they were saying multi-use buildings aren't really penciling right now, which is really interesting. Okay, we will keep going. And now then the next part that they discussed was the Harmony Corridor and employment zones. This is the Air Park area out here, Harmony Corridor. Again, one of the things that they had was this 75%, 25% ratio of primary and secondary uses. Essentially, the primary uses, office, retail, restaurant, but there was barely any residential being built. So they wanted to remove that restriction for primary and secondary uses to try to push a secondary use, which is housing. Okay. And because there's really no housing being built. One interesting piece of information was they have 180 acres left of vacant land to be built out in the Harmony Corridor. I just thought that was really interesting. That there's still 180 acres yet to be built out, similar size to Hugh. So you can imagine just how impactful and how important, acreage is when you have a kind of confined growth area for Fort Collins. The next thing they talked about was building types and designs. Again, they just really wanted to make this more of a form-based code, very clean, clear, easy to follow. And then finally, change of use process. Now, this is probably most important for small business owners because they want to be able to change, let's say, from like a coffee shop to a full-fledged restaurant without having to, rip up their entire building and bring everything to current codes, or a single-family house that might be in a commercial zone that they want to transfer into like a counseling center or home counseling and have to go through this entire huge process. So they're wanting to make this less burdensome because it is difficult and challenging for small business owners. And so that's I'm definitely excited to see that. And the final thing that they talked about, we will skip through this. The final thing that they talked about was our land use, right on it. Our quarter cent, I thought, maybe it was half cent. Yeah, it is a quarter cent sales tax renewal. So this is not going to increase our 8.05% sales tax. It is going to renew what we already have. So that's something important to note. But this is going to be on our November's ballot. So we will be voting this year for the next 10 years. But here's how it breaks down per our, it's going to be $103 million is what our projections are, about $11 million annually, $110 million total revenue. So we got about $7 million buffer. Active modes, river, culture, parks and recreation, housing, transit, and mobility safety. Here is the actual projects. So if this is what you are voting on, Fort Collins, for this renewal, $14 million pedestrian sidewalk, arterial intersection improvement and streetscapes program. We've got that going on right now at College and Trilby, and I can't wait till that's done. It's going to change the dynamic of that intersection. Bicycle infrastructure overpass and underpass. So we just talked about the trails, master trails program that they passed last week, made that a resolution. So this gives funding to that. Affordable Housing Capital Fund, $10 million to that. Mulberry Pool recreation replacement. Now, I think there's going to be some verbiage changes on the replacement because I don't really think it's going to be replacement. It's just going to be updating, modifying, making better. Poudre River North downtown park shop. So this $7.9 million downtown park shop, that's going to be slimmed down big time between this and the trolley building renovation. These, basically 14, well, let's see here. That's $15 million of budget is going to be slimmed down big time. And they wanted to put some of that towards composting, $7 million towards composting, but they're a little hesitant because it's kind of a bigger, broader picture with Larimer County of what they're going to do regionally and how everyone's going to participate. But they want to have $7 million earmarked for composting. And then they want to kind of move the most of this or a majority of this to affordable housing. And Jenny Arndt was talking about how, man, it is going to be tough to buy our way into affordable housing. I do know we have a huge shortfall. Tricia Canonico, Emily Francis, Julie Pignataro were all very hard on, pushing this money towards affordable housing. And I don't know what the answer is, but maybe there should definitely be some money towards it. This is the Community Capital Improvement Tax. Let's see here, CCIP. Capital Sales Tax Cent Renewal. What is it actually called? I think they changed the name. I think it's the CCIP is Community Capital Improvement Project Tax. Community Capital Improvement. I guess, so that's the scary thing about where sales tax dollars can go is, they can massage the name and use of these dollars, kind of how they see fit. And our half-cent sales tax has seen some of that, where they can take some of our carbon footprint, our pollution, where it gets half cent went to Parks and Recreation, a quarter cent went to transit, and a quarter cent went to carbon emissions. I can't think of the name right now. But they can kind of massage some of the dollars from the carbon emissions into our transportation because our transportation will ultimately reduce, hopefully, some of our carbon emissions. So sales tax definitely can be, it's why we're watching what our city council does. Are they spending dollars in the right places? And this would be kind of an interesting one, right? They're going to take money and put it towards more affordable housing, but is that improving the community capital improvement project? I don't know. Something that we all have to talk about, think about, and understand, is that where this money should go, or could it be put elsewhere to make Fort Collins great? Don't know. Pickleball court, complex and courts, you could have that same exact argument. Is pickleball going to make Fort Collins great? Maybe. I don't know. $4 million nature in the city, transport bus replacement, recreational paved trails. So $2.5 million per year. That would, I think, expedite our estimate of, instead of 45 years to 25 years, if we had this $2.5 million for recreational paved trails. Construction waste, gardens on Spring Creek, Lee Martinez, and our Timberline Recycling Center improvements. So a total of $103 million. And that is where our sales tax dollars are going to be going if we vote to renew it, which I'm going to put my stamp of approval. I'm going to say we need it. We want it. Fort Collins is amazing. And this is one of the reasons why it is. I don't want to backtrack in what we've got going on with City of Fort Collins. I think we've got a lot of great things going on. Excited about it. So I would be voting yes for this renewal. Let's see here. Let's stop the share. And we'll end with things to do this weekend. I will note, if you are a peach fan like myself, Palisade Peaches, their tents are popping up all over the place. So get yourself some Palisade Peaches. This Friday, there's a Fort Collins Foodie Walk, 5 to 8 p.m. downtown. Just go explore. There's music series everywhere. I was just driving through. I want to say it was I think it was Rain Dance. And there was some yard signs saying, come to our concert series or our music series. And then between that, the Lagoon, Centera, Old Town, Fort Collins, Loveland, there's just always music series all over the place. So get out, explore, at the Foothills Mall. There's just music series all over the place, and each one has a little bit different vibe. So go check all those out. Speaking of which, the 7th annual Brickies Creation Festival, essentially a Lego contest. This is the 7th annual. I was there the first year they did it, and I was running Old Town at that time, and it was definitely very, very small, and they have grown it quite a bit. In fact, when they first started, the right card, which is now South Broadway Country Club, here's some City of Fort Collins history for you, was vacant. And they said, hey, can we short-term rent the space so we can have people come through and it's out of the elements? And we agreed to that. So we had a short-term lease for them to go in and use that space. And now fast forward 7 years later, seems like they've done quite well. It's really a popular event. So this is going to be on Saturday between 12 to 5:30 p.m. and it is free. And there are contests, so I think you get to go down and you can vote. And finally, the Foco Fondo Fat Tire is this Saturday and Sunday, I believe. But I did have somebody send this to me asking if I wanted to do it, and I was like a hard no. I just, man, I am not a long distance person. Like, give me short, quick deals. I'm all about it. But anyways, you can choose between 12, 30, 60, 100, or 118 miles where you start and finish at New Belgium. I think there's some I think a lot of this is it's a gravel ride, a gravel race. And New Belgium, I don't know if New Belgium's putting it on. I think it is. Yeah. Yeah, I think they are putting it on. But that is this Saturday. I don't know if it's the first one or what, but get out there, support people who are doing this, because could you imagine after 118 miles riding on gravel? Fat Tire is the main sponsor. Thanks, Marcus. Appreciate you. So, man, I respect anybody who's doing it. I did have one friend who asked me. I don't know if they ended up signing up to do it. I am not doing it, but it is 10 to 5 p.m. on Saturday and 10:30 to 5 p.m. on Sunday. And the expo is free to attend. So go out, support local. The only way that these events stay on an annual basis is if we are out there supporting them. So make sure to get out there, support both the competitors as well as the sponsors that are putting this together. So thank you, New Belgium. And thank you, Marcus, for letting me know. All right, there we go. That is live in Fort Collins. I will not see you next Monday. Izzy will. And I'm going to be on vacation, probably going to come back sunburnt, or I'm going to try to protect myself. But you guys enjoy the next week or two without me. And, well, not two, but next week without me. And I will talk to you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.